Everyone's ready to go. It is 1 minute after 6, and I call this meeting, regular city council meeting of January 3rd, 2023, brand new year, to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Grant.
Present.
Councilmember Leal.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Green.
Here.
Mayor Lottie.
Here.
Councilmember Littleton.
Here.
Councilmember Hill.
He informed me that he would be absent today.
And then Councilmember Ford Jensen.
Present. Excellent. I would ask at this time for approval of the agenda. Any changes? Anybody like to make? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion, please.
Grant needs to approve the agenda.
Hold on, 11 seconds.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All in favor. This time we have housekeeping matters. Anything anybody would like to discuss briefly before we get rolling?
Yeah, I would like to discuss one thing.
Yes,
I think, we kind of owe our, community a bit of a conversation and explanation for everything that's happening in the police department. I think we're moving a bit too fast, getting now swearing in new officers without really having any communications with the community. And I think we owe our community at the very least an explanation. These are very expensive choices that we are making and at the expense of the community. And I think we need to move a little bit slower and have these talks before we start just making choices out of the blue. No offense, you can, but I just don't think it's the right moment to just be playing fast and loose just to play catch up. I think we owe conversation to our community on who will be leading for them on this type of job, especially given how volatile it's been for the rest of America. It is the very least we could do for our small community.
Thank you, Christian. Anybody else who have any housekeeping matters they'd like to?
I agree with Christian. I think we're going too fast here and.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. At this time, is there anybody in the public who would like to speak to city council? If you would, please raise your hand if you're in chambers. If you're on Zoom, unmute and introduce yourself, please. And if you want to speak to city council, you introduce yourself, give us your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none. At this time, we have the swearing in of interim police chief.
I, Kenneth Chavez,
I, Kenneth Chavez,
do solemnly swear by the ever-loving God
do solemnly swear by the ever-living God
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado,
and the municipal laws and code of the city of Leadville.
and the municipal code and laws of the city of Lebanon.
I will uphold, obey, and enforce the law
I will uphold, obey, and enforce the law
without consideration to a person's race,
without consideration to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability.
handicap, or disability.
I affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties of interim police chief
I affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties of interim police chief
of the Leadville Police Department with fidelity.
of the Leadville Police Department with fidelity.
I enter this obligation freely without any reservations.
I enter this obligation freely without any obligations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see that. No, thank you for helping us out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, and I would just like to allow Ken a moment to introduce himself. He is our interim chief. He is helping us through a period where we just need some help in our police department. It is a temporary position and he understands that. He is willing to help us out for this period of time. And I agree that we need to have conversations with our community. So in no way is this a permanent selection. This is an interim position and he is being sworn in solely because he wants to serve in uniform. And he wants to serve the department 24/7. So in order to do that, we needed to swear him in. So I just like to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about yourself. You come with a lot of experience, but I think you can tell us better than I can.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Mayor, City Council, Your Honor. I really appreciate this honor and privilege to serve the Leadville community and its citizens. I come to you with a extensive background in law enforcement of 4 decades from the Denver Police Department, the largest department in the state of Colorado. I also served for 36 years in the Colorado National Guard. My entire adult career has been in public service, the citizens, my local community, my state, and my nation. And my military service includes 4 combat tours of duty overseas, 3 of which to Afghanistan and Iraq. So I have a lot of experience in leading individuals in public service. I was asked to come up here to help, and I consider that a great privilege. I have no intention of applying for the chief's job. I live in northern Colorado, and my wife and I intend to stay there. So I'm here to help out to make sure the department stays solid, that it's still providing a service to the community, and that we're adhering to the laws and procedures of the state of Colorado. But I look forward to your input and your suggestions and getting to know all of you on a weekly basis. I don't know how long this is going to last, but I'll be here only as long as I'm needed. And that's it. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
2 copies, so unfortunately I started signing. For that place, so I can get it in. Do you mind keeping the message?
I think it would be perfect. He could have the
He can have
next
plain.
meeting. How's that?
So that-
Thank you. Thank you very much. You pass that down the hand, please. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here. Appreciate it. And also for that. At this time, we have the Food Access Coalition. As we make it a presentation, Maura Gwynn.
Here.
Come on up. Come on up.
Okay, well, I said DJ.
Oh, I see.
And I'm gonna set my timer because I can talk for 23 hours on this. We're in 6-10 minutes. I appreciate your time tonight. I think I've probably exchanged emails with many of you, but I'm Mara. I facilitate the Food Access Coalition here in Leadville. With the County Build a Generation, I have been doing that since 2020, just before the pandemic started, January 2020, stepped into the position. Yeah, and tonight I mostly just wanted to share with you a lot of the progress we've made as a coalition and where we're headed in the next couple of years. I am extremely excited and I think we're in a really good place. And yeah, having the city buy-in for that is going to be really important. Let me start my timer to do that. Cool, and I'll try, I'm gonna do a little bit of context. I will try to keep that down to like 5 minutes so that we can ask questions. But yeah, today is more of just start of the conversation and yeah, I hope that we'll be able to speak more in the future. Okay, that's not. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I just wanted to ground us a little bit in who the Food Access Coalition is. And I know you all live in this community and therefore you are content experts on living here, but just kind of talk about the state of food access as well. So Lake County Food Access Coalition, we're a group of community members and organizations that come together to talk about food systems planning in our community. In the past, we've had a really strong record in doing more programmatic, project-based things like the mobile food pantry at St. George, started in the Food Access Coalition, the farm at C4. We've done food health, veggie prescription classes over the past years. But yeah, the group has really kind of shifted from more of those Band-Aid approaches to how do we create intentionally the food system that serves everyone in our community. You know, some of us can make the food system as it is work for us. And it's generally folks who have more access to funds and can shop at Safeway or have the time to drive from Summit County to go shopping. But the fact is, I think as it stands, the food system isn't working for anyone. So yeah, and I just wanted to point out as well, so yeah, I think one of the greatest assets of the coalition is that we're extremely diverse and becoming increasingly representative of the community. And that is incredibly important when recommendations come from a group that is trusted messengers for their parents, their friends, their families, etc. So I think that is a huge asset that I just would like to keep in mind for everyone. And then we're also working with a lot of content experts. So one of the great things about being at Village Generation as well is that we are able to contract with some really great outside consultants and experts that have really helped us change our thinking and help the group make, you know, the most impactful decisions that we can. Okay. Super quickly, I'll go over these things. As we all know, you know, we have one grocery store, over 8,000 residents. I recently looked up what the cost of a self-sufficiency standard for our community versus how much we're making. It would take about $90,000 per family of 4 to live comfortably in this community, and our median income is only $65K. Since 2001, that's a 250% increase. And that is one of the highest increases in the state of Colorado. Yet measurable impacts in our food system has not necessarily caught up with that. Another really important thing to look at as well when we think about food access is that although our population is increasing as well as our median income, our Latin community is decreasing, and that is what gentrification looks like. And as a community, the more that we can do to subsidize the cost of living for people to be able to afford their housing, their food, their medicine, the more we're going to be able to preserve the community that we all love. So yeah, and then just some more numbers to round us off. Looking at Lake County versus the state of Colorado and versus the United States. As we all know, SNAP utilization, we still struggle with that. Colorado, although we are 44th in the nation, to the bottom in SNAP utilization, we're still at 79% as a state. And the Lake County is only at 36%. So we have a lot of growth to do there. Our children, almost half of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. And the food insecurity rate as well is higher in Lake County. So that's kind of the more obvious signs of food insecurity. You know, folks are not able to afford the food they want to feed their families. They're choosing low quality, low cost options when they want to feed their family healthy, nutritious meals like we all do. So I kind of touched on this, almost 5 minutes in. Okay, kind of touched on this. Past projects, you know, the Food Access Coalition has just done a lot of capacity building and community education over the past years. A lot of success in building infrastructure for our community. And yeah, we're kind of ready to push from those project-based programs and really start to do a systematic approach to creating a better food system. So yeah, the purpose of tonight, I just wanted to share with you that we are in the beginning stages of drafting a food action plan. This is best practices in food policy planning, both at the state, city, national level. We're kind of moving, like I said, towards creating a unified vision or goal for our community that stays, you know, regardless of who holds my job, who the electeds are, who staffing is, we come together and we have this vision, although flexible and, you know, responsive to our community as it changes, we still have, something to work towards, which I think is what we've really been missing in terms of food system planning, that coordination, collaboration, and goal. Yeah, and it also, you know, it gives our community something that's time bound, we're held accountable to. It will increase engagement with our food system, and a definitive way to generate revenue for those projects that we identify in the plan that will improve our food system. It's much easier to bring in outside grant funding when you can point to a holistic plan that says, hey, this is what we're working towards. So yeah, and engagement is a great way, you know, I know you all obviously care about civic engagement as the city council, so it's a really big way to start getting more folks involved in our food system. Yeah, and kind of, you know, why we're looking at a systemic approach versus that project-based approach. There's a lot of opportunity to build a food economy. There's a lot of opportunity to have a more resilient food system. We all know during the pandemic, when we only had one grocery store, limits on the number of fruits and vegetables that we could take home. If you're a family of 8, that did not work for you. And so building a resilient food system is extremely important for us. Food access issues, you know, and addressing issues at scale, as important as having our emergency food system like St. George is. We need to have more options that work for the rest of the community, folks who maybe don't need to interact with the emergency food system, but still are struggling to live in our community. Yeah. Cool, and then I just want to point out as well, I think one of the important components of the food action plan is, you know, we're not just looking at infrastructure, we're looking at building a food culture for our community. You know, what do we want to lift up? Like, what does it mean to be an eater in Leadville? Food skills, do our community members know how to compost? Do we know how to cook nutritious foods? Do our children play in the garden at school? All those really important skills. That yeah, connect people both to our food system and to our planet. And yeah, food environments is just, you know, the places that people spend time is healthy food, the easy, available, and affordable option at school, at work, etc. Okay, and yeah, I just want to highlight to kind of wrap us up here. Highlight, so we're a good company, a lot of communities in Colorado really have started on this. A lot of great work in Boulder Broomfield around creating a food policy advisory council. That is a group of residents that advises both the city and the county on food policy that would beneficial for the community. Down in the Southwest, Archuleta, La Plata, they're doing some really cool regional planning and advocacy. So that, you know, as programs like the free school lunches rolls out, they're going to be better set to take advantage of that. You know, than a community that hasn't thought about our regional food planning, how we get food. And what I really loved, I don't know if you all have looked at the comp plan, but back in 2015, we already put a placeholder in for food access. And so we already have a head start, like that is a really big policy promising sign that we've already put it in our comprehensive planning. I know we're probably due for a new one in the next couple of years, but I think the biggest difference is since 2014, you know, that was the first time we'd ever looked at our food system, you know, and now we have 7 years of data and experience since then, and just a whole new lens when it comes to developing our food system. So yeah, I think we're really set up with all the tools that we need.
Look at that.
The end.
Sorry. But yeah, since I'm out of time, just if anybody wants to talk to me, I'd love just to find out how the city would like to be involved in this process. 2 seconds left. Timeline, we're hoping by March-ish to have our first draft complete. So we'll be doing some key stakeholder interviews. In the meantime, that's a great way to get involved. Yeah, we have a couple meetings, get involved in the implementation. It's just, yeah, it's really important to have you all excited and on board and your vision for our food system as part of this. Okay, so I don't have any time questions. Thank you all.
Thanks, all.
Appreciate it.
Anybody have a question for Bob?
Yeah.
Tracy?
What do you mean by SNAP utilization? Does that mean if 100% of the people who qualify for SNAP, or we've only got 36% actually using it?
Yes, exactly. So
And
that
why
is,
is that?
there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of like nuanced and historical reasons that it's a challenge. I would say the most success I've seen are in communities that truly embrace SNAP as a tool for the community. Mesa County is an incredible example. They did an entire community-wide messaging campaign that talked about the benefits of SNAP enrollment. They did a really holistic program where they helped teachers and, medical professionals understand food insecurity and have a meaningful way to help people get enrolled. So I think for us, we need to move beyond the idea that CDAO education and outreach is going to meaningfully improve our enrollment. And we need to, kind of settle in and decide what is our approach to actually getting people enrolled. Because I don't know, one of my favorite things about SNAP, for every SNAP dollar that somebody spends, they estimate it generates about $1.72 in economic stimulus. So
And
it's,
those are federal funds, right?
yes, and it's federal funds. We don't use it, we lose it. And Hunger Free Colorado tracks the statistics, and since like 2014, we've lost like $7 or $8 million in federal funds that we could have been bringing into our community. So it's huge. It's a really important tool that I would love to see us improve on.
There has been a push to get the information about SNAP out in the past. Obviously, it hasn't worked very well.
Yeah, I think, and that's what I think, it's there, food access is tricky. There's a lot of stigma both at the personal and the community level. So that's why I think, kind of, like I said, taking that more holistic approach of we're pretty clear on what the barriers are in our community, but getting serious about resourcing ways to get around those barriers. I think it's gonna be really important. And I would be hugely surprised if SNAP utilization didn't end up in this action plan. That's something we've wanted to improve as a community for a really long time.
It seems like the easiest lowest hanging fruit to not tackle SNAP as a primary objective. It's kind of surprising that hasn't already started. Based on my experiences personally, it seems like there's a stigma at the governmental level as well that we need to change. So hopefully we can get that addressed.
I think that should really be a focus for us. And it's gonna be hard work. We're gonna have to undo a lot of damage and stigma. But I think for having, community members and families be able to feed their children what they want, it's obviously worth it.
Yeah. We tried to bring another grocery store in town. We've been unsuccessful. Are you looking at a co-op or anything like that?
So I was at this conference a couple weeks ago. And I think for us, we've always, at least in my perspective, we've always asked the question of, we'll take anybody who wants to come here. Let's be honest, we put it to effort for some more local grocery chains. But it was a community in Baltimore, and they really sat down, and it seemed so radical to me, but they were like, what type of business do we actually want to be a part of our community? And are we willing to accept a Walmart? Is that the type of food system we want? And if not, then yes, we need to look at those more radical options. I think something that's hugely promising, La Pasadena as well as La Victoria are both interested in expanding their selections, as well as expanding to more fresh fruits, vegetables, produce, meats. And both of those stores recently got a grant from the Blueprint and Hunger to update their POS system, and La Pasadena got extra storage so that they could, buy more fresh meats and culturally responsive produce. And the state legislature last year, the next 2 years, we're gonna see additional grants coming for about $25,000 a piece for local retailers, to improve their infrastructure. So kind of start looking from what do we already have, what is already trusted in our community. And it's so important, I think, to have owners that live in our community and care about our community and are not going anywhere. So one of the key things I'd really like to see is we start building up the assets we currently have. While simultaneously figuring out what is gonna supplement that.
Questions?
Thank you.
I have another. I've sat down with Liz at St. George. And they're looking at potentially $140,000 shortfall in 2023.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and so that's one of the challenges of relying on the charitable food system. You know, we have those SNAP dollars available, we have low enrollment. If we could get a higher enrollment, that's less people shopping at St. George. So that's a really important key aspect, but you know, the philanthropic charitable food system is inherently unsustainable. We rely on grant funding. And in order to write those grants, manage them, and to be able to secure enough to meet our increasing need is extremely challenging. So I would say we need invested funding in them longer term, both at like the city and the county level. We're also doing some strategic planning with them in February to hopefully kind of settle into what is our food procurement budget. You know, are there alternatives to getting cheaper produce in particular to our community via St. George? Because yeah, the Luz at St. George does an excellent job with her budget, and she really focuses the money she spends is on those fresh fruits and vegetables that people want, and the rest she gets from discounted food banks or government sources. Which means there is opportunity to maybe, you know, form partnerships with regional farms, to form partnerships with other food pantries. Yeah, and just really kind of figure out what does this look like sustainably? Cause yeah, I know you all like, it was like on a Monday, we were like, oh, let's start a food pantry at St. George, and here we are 3 years later, and their operating budget is, you know, $220,000 a year on food alone. And that need is not going anywhere with inflation. And like the looming threat of a recession. So we need to support them, keep them around, and also build up the food system that's gonna give other options beyond just the charitable.
Would it be helpful to have a city council member on the Food Access Coalition Board?
Yes, absolutely.
Just thought.
Please, we love you.
I know.
No, but I think as leaders of the community, that would be incredible. Or if there, you know, if there are other ways that I can keep you all like updated, involved, that is a different commitment, I'd love to talk about that. I think it's important to have your voice, whatever that looks like.
We are having a conversation just after this on who will be representing each board, so.
We have great food at our meetings.
Is it healthy like the food that we bring?
Yeah, no.
Like a charity board?
It's healthy for the soul grant.
Just talk about before.
Oh, okay.
Awesome, yeah, any other questions at the moment? Okay,
No,
awesome.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and I'll share my info. Yeah, and I'd love to just follow up with everyone, so.
Great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. A little frightening, actually. Well, you know. We have a community need, and it's hard to meet that need. Next up, we have selection of city council representatives to various community organizations. You know, Lori and I talked about this, most of our city council members work full-time, so it's very difficult to be involved at the community level all the time, but she asked us to put together a list of I'll just pass it out, Tracy. These are, I was trying to think of, what do I do? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, there's a lot. And I'm not necessarily asking anybody to take any of this, but it's ideas. And this Food Access Coalition is probably a classic example of where it would be good to have city council representation, but we have lots of other possibilities. There's some things that are not even on here. The EDC, Tim has been our representative on the EDC, but he doesn't want to do that
So
anymore.
the folks who responded, Councilmember for Genesee responded and indicated that he's on the LURA, the Leadville Urban Renewal Authority Board. All the city councils on that one, so I think that's by bylaws. Tim did respond that he has been the representative for the Economic Development Corporation Board. And he said, now that we are not funding the EDC, I'm assuming that the board seat will cease to exist. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it does still exist, he's not interested in filling the seat. He says he's also attending the tourism panel meetings as a representative of the city, and he would like to continue in that role. He's also obviously on the Regional Housing Authority Board and would like to continue to serve on that board. These aren't ones up for discussion because those are sort of ones that have been decided. But the point of this is just at the beginning of the year to check in with everyone and see what boards and commissions you all have over the years voluntold for or been voluntold for, and just to check in and see if everyone wants to continue on those, or if anyone would like to be on one that they're not. I just think it's a good time for us to check in and then maybe make a list of who attends what. I do know, there are some that we don't necessarily have a designee, and maybe we should, so the Food Access Coalition or other organizations. I think it's sort of been on a ad hoc basis where organizations have asked us to send a representative, or we've like obviously the Regional Housing Authority Board was a bit different, and so is Laura, but in other sense, I think most of the time it's just been organizations have asked us to send someone and someone raises their hand. So the mayor's obviously got the longest list. I think, is the Mineral Belt Trail Committee on that? I think you indicated you've occasionally gone to that one.
I just went the one time, but I would like to attend more often, or
Yeah.
certainly like for us to be represented on that committee, since I announced the local, I attend from time to
Well,
time.
and ones like that, I do think it's probably a good idea. There are some that we are probably more connected to. I mean, the Mineral Belt does run through city property. I think if we have someone who can attend those meetings just to find out, so we can communicate to citizens. People ask sometimes, is the trail getting groomed, or are they going to add more trail? My idea would be, when we get designees to certain committees, that if you feel like you have something to report, when we get to council member reports, you could say, oh, we've now, it's winter time, the Mineral Belt's going to be groomed, or the Food Access Coalition is going to have an event to, sort of create that passage along of information for people who pay attention to the city council meetings, or the one or two people who read our minutes. They can be up to date. I do think we communicate with the public in our meetings, and, generally with what the newspaper picks up. And I would like for us to be able to communicate out what some of these organizations are doing, because we have representatives there who pass along information. So are there any, I guess, as far as, maybe Tim's list is a little easier than everyone else's, as far as the Economic Development Corporation, I went to their last meeting, and the intention is that it would continue. We don't have to have a board seat per se. I mean, we have had a board seat, but that came with a contribution. We can have someone attend the meetings. You can simply send someone as an attendee without a financial commitment. So I guess this is a discussion for tonight. So if there are people who are thinking they would like to be on a certain board or commission, maybe now's the time for us to talk about that. It sounds like if everyone's okay with Tim still being our person who attends the tourism panel meetings, then he would like to continue doing that.
I guess, Mayor,
No, please.
I guess I like the idea of making sure that we're, being represented and also perhaps providing some bandwidth, additional bandwidth, so you're not attending these meetings, the mayor isn't attending these meetings as much. That said, I'd like to think about it more strategically than getting right down into who's gonna be attending what meetings, is like, what's the expectations for us as a group? For how many committees or organizations that one of us should attend, right? As you know, that we all have jobs, some of which take us outside of this community to do. And so I just want to have that discussion and then maybe prioritize where you think our time is best served as well, because I mean, EDC is one thing, but like, what about the Emergency Operations Council or whatever that is, or LaCosi or the Forest Health, all these other, Forest Health Councils, the Food Access Coalition. I mean, there's so many, right? Like, what makes sense? And what should we as a council commit to before just sticking people in there? I mean, I'm not against sticking people in there, but like, I mean, if we made a commitment to say that, yeah, we should serve on 1 or 2 or, or something like that, whatever it is, 10, maybe at that point, it should be a full-time job for the city council member,
Well,
the city of Moab.
I don't think we should set any number for any council member. I think when you run for the city council, you are running for the city council. And I think Leadville Urban Renewal Authority is an obligation that comes with that. And then the members who decided to be, our designees to the Regional Housing Authority. After that, I think it should be the people who have an interest in that subject and a willingness to attend the meetings. Now, the ones that happen during the day, the mayor and I can attend those, so the emergency operations, those types of meetings, we can cover those. I think what I would like to know is who has an interest in serving on anything in addition to what they're obligated to. If there's no interest, we're not going to force anybody to attend them. I guess the question is, does anyone have an interest in any of the ones we're already sending the mayor to? What he's saying is he's willing to let someone else be our designee to those. If the answer is no one has any interest in that, I think the mayor and I would cover the ones that we think are, we can't go to all of them, but we can go to ones where there's an interest particular to the city.
Yeah. On that note, I think some of the most important ones that may or may not be on this list, that I have gone through from my experience working at Full Circle as the advocate, going around to all these coalitions and attending quite a few of them. It definitely makes sense to have Food Access Coalition, Housing Coalition, and Homelessness Subcommittee members. Currently, I'm the chair of the Housing Coalition, and I don't want my role as a council person and be representative of the council to have any impact on my advocacy at that level, or any other potential conflicts as being the chair of subcommittee. So both the homelessness subcommittee and the housing coalition, I'm there and I could give updates on what's going on, but I don't necessarily know if it would be fair to call me a representative if I am going there pushing whatever I believe in and not necessarily representing the council.
Maybe representatives the wrong way to put it, maybe just involvement. I mean, it's a good point, which hat do you wear when you're there?
And it says it's mostly as someone who lives here and really represent myself as a council person as much as just someone who has a deep care and interest for that aspect of Leadville and Lake County. So, but if the goal is to come back with some reports of what's going on in those areas, I can certainly do that and not have to wear the hat, which I see an issue with. The Food Access Coalition is one that I've been interested in for a while. The Child Care Coalition, usually I didn't have the time to go as often, but it is an important one. The Food Access Coalition is one that I would be comfortable representing if that is what's needed at our level.
I think that's fantastic. The Child Care Coalition, I had agreed with Brooke to join them, but the last meeting was canceled, and they're trying to, you know. Or reorganize really their thoughts of the process. So I had actually raised my hand for that one and said I would like to be involved in that.
I guess, I know that we're not obligated to, Lori, but like, I'm curious if the council will be willing to assist and have one person or somebody attend, each council person attend at least one. I mean, I'm not saying it's necessary. I mean, if people have other obligation, that's fine, but like, you're asking for more representation, right? I mean, that,
I guess I'm asking for interest. If someone doesn't have any interest and they don't have the time, I don't think it's fair to ask. I think, you know, frankly, I'm interested in the mineral belt. I use the mineral belt a lot. Like I would go to that one because I'm interested in it. You know, I think if there's other ones that happened and they happen during the day and a council member has a job, I understand that they may have an interest but can't attend. So this is more like letting people raise their hand rather than being assigned, I guess.
well, I'm not asking that, raising your hand, but I'm looking across. I think we're talking about semantics, like, for example, if my wife works, she's on the Mineral Belt Coalition. If you want to know anything about that, I mean, does anybody here need to? I'll get the update tomorrow evening when she gets back. I mean, like, I mean, I'm just wondering,
Are they having a meeting tomorrow evening?
tomorrow evening, yeah,
What time?
6 p.m.
And where do they hold
Probably up at the college. Yes,
it? They were like in 211 or something last time.
Yeah.
Okay.
but I guess I'm like, are there, as a council, I'm asking, are there certain committees and boards that you just don't have the capacity to go to, or the mayor, that then perhaps you could ask if one of us is willing to attend those meetings on your behalf, provide those updates? Are there those that to provide you that work-life balance? If we have the capacity to do so, is there somebody that would be willing to step up to assist, right? That's
Right.
what I'm,
Yeah.
like, instead of like, I mean, I believe all of these are important in some way.
Right.
However, what is the most, like, if you could prioritize those that you can, what could we help you with? Or not, if we can't, if it's on a, whatever it may be, I don't know, I'm just asking, is there anything that you need assistance with that we can contribute to?
Well, I think we have had a representative for the EDC board, and it sounds like Tim isn't interested in continuing. So if the council's still interested, and I think it is important for us to have a city, you know, person attend. If someone is willing to do that, that would be great. I do not know when the next EDC meeting is. They were thinking about setting it up in January. As you know, they're in a little bit of transition and working through things. So right now we have the need for someone to do that. If no one is available, the mayor and I will cover it and get the details, and then, you know, maybe come back to you after they've gotten a meeting schedule and ask if someone wants to serve on that. I think what I would say is, because the structure of the city and the way it has been, the mayor, you know, I wasn't here previously, so the mayor has been our representative to many of these. So I think the question is fair to him. Right now, I'm just going to be really honest with you. I've not been able to attend any Parkville Water District or Sanitation District meetings. They usually fall on a week when, if I attended those, I wouldn't have a single evening to myself. So do we think we absolutely need a representative? I mean, I know the mayor goes to those meetings as often as he can. What I guess we're saying to you is, if you have an interest, that would be great. We are currently covering everything. I don't think there's any organization who feels like we are missing at the table.
We missed quite a few meetings just because of conflicts or, you know, for a variety of reasons, but stuff, you know, you can't make all those meetings.
Right.
Can't be done.
So I guess I would say if we wanted to think about a systematic approach and having someone, you know, I don't know that we have priorities other than the ones where we have chosen by vote people to attend. So the Regional Housing Authority, for example.
I would say, to Max's point, the last CPP meeting, I had a direct conflict, was not able to attend. What I should do then is send a note out to city council saying, is there anybody who could get those Zoom meetings? So is there anybody who could attend the CPP? That's the climax meetings that they hold quarterly, and you know, they give us a lot of information about how it's going with Freeport McMoran and Climax Mine. And then they also, you know, talk about community issues and each person gives an update on their community. So that means that's exactly what you're asking, and that's what I should be doing when it's something that seems important.
I mean, if you said, hey, I have a need, and I had a heart in my calendar that said, oh yeah, I have that hour free, I would say yes,
Is that 1 hour?
or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying that, like,
Well, I would say that the whole board and say, is anybody that can come, and maybe I'll do that more often on things that a lot of these, if we're there, we're not there, it's not terribly important. But for some things, it actually is meaningful, so, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a discussion, and I think if we decide we wanted to do it a different way, I guess my question was, and I've seen it done elsewhere, that you come up with essentially a spreadsheet of the organizations where the city wants participation, whether it's just to show up and bring information back, or others where you have a voting seat. And you go down the list once a year and someone has the opportunity to raise their hand and say, I'd like to do that, and someone else may want to raise their hand and say, I don't want to do that anymore. And we didn't have that formal process. So I was trying to start that formal process here. So we were doing it sort of ad hoc. Someone would come and say, look, we have this thing, and someone might say they want to do it, but have we checked in with them recently that they still want to do it? And so that's where we are right now, trying to formalize a little more who serves on what, and how often do we check in with everyone to see if they still want to do that?
yeah, I'm totally, I mean, it's my other question, I guess, Laurie, is there another way to get the information from these besides attending the meetings? Can they, I mean, if it's, let's say I'm looking at the homeless coalition, what if they have
minutes.
minutes?
Most of them have minutes.
Yeah, if we're able to have those minutes or have biannual presentations from these folks where they're actually coming to us and presenting during those times. I mean, what requires our attendance on a monthly basis, what may be best served by minutes or by them presenting to us, so we understand what's going on in the community. I mean, I would love to maybe put this to a work session and like really figure out how to organize and request some, you know, to get more information. I don't know.
Well, I think the information's out there. We laid it out, like Tracy's the chair of the DCC. Sounds like Christian's on 4 or 5 different boards and coalitions. I don't know. I think, as was said at the very beginning, this is an at-will issue. You know, if you feel like you have the time and it's something of interest to you, by all means, raise your hand. If not, then we just won't worry too much about it. And then we'll go on and do the best we can.
And to the point, so Laura's point, we need to more to kind of state which ones we as councils are having the most importance of. So if we make a short list of these committees are the ones that we value the most, and one way or another, we want to find out what's going on with them. I think this is kind of Max's point, like, we should, right? And I think we could do that today, or we could have a work session or whatever works best. I'm more than happy to kind of start that discussion, if that makes sense right now.
Yeah, just the reason that we put this as a discussion is if we wanted to decide anything tonight, or at least get an idea of who wants to serve on what, we could start putting together that spreadsheet. And if we want to have a work session to put together that information, because we think we need a little bit more time. We didn't certainly plan for this to be, 40 minutes of our agenda, so. I defer to all of you. I think we've come up with a couple of things that. Tim wants to attend the tourism panel meetings. He doesn't want to be on EDC. Sounds like Councilmember Luna Ayala is interested and willing to attend the Food Access Coalition in whatever capacity. The Child Care Coalition, the mayor's indicated a willingness to attend that.
But you're also on that, right, Christian, or you? Yeah, okay, sorry.
So I think we've hammered out a few. I think the mayor's got a list of the ones he attends. I think if there's any changes to any of those, it's sort of raise your hand.
I'm not raising my hand. A couple of comments. I thought EDC meetings were closed to those who were not members. Like you had to be a member, except for an
Now
annual
that you
meeting.
mention, I think that's true. I think the general public is not invited. They are. And
So not members,
Well,
that's kind of a moot.
you can be a member with $100 and attend. And it's
So it needs to call.
5,000 to have a seat on the board, so.
Also, the COG, are we members of the COG? So you are the member of the board. of the COG.
Right. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be the mayor. We have COG representatives or council members like Dan Shore in Slide, who was on the COG for years
And
before
you're
he became
voting
mayor.
member.
Yeah.
And then, I think the one you left off here is right now, it's a hospital board.
I wrote it down.
Okay.
So you were
We
raising your
should have somebody attending a hospital board.
You're probably right. I thought about, they're asking, they have 2 vacancies. And I thought, well, maybe I should raise my hand. I said, no, I know nothing about hospitals. What would I be doing on that board,
Well, that also suggests a different, are you a member because you're a citizen of the county, or are you a member because you're representing the city? And then you got to,
And that's kind of the point that I try to make with
Yeah.
Housing Coalition is I am not there as a member of council in Princeton. I get along with all of you quite well. But it's mostly just because I feel like that could potentially have an influence on whatever I am advocating for at the moment. And I would never want council to feel like I'm representing them when I am in my advocacy mode, and we may have like big disagreements on what the solution is. So it's also important to just keep that in mind if we are to represent any of these in a official sense. Because that's something that we deal with in every aspect as an advocate or as a representative. It's the norm.
Then, Shay, please.
So I just know that my personal capacity is almost at its maximum. Would be interested and willing to serve on a the community partnership panel on a quarterly basis. I would be willing to do that. I do, like Max said, sometimes have holes in my calendar, and if I were to know that something was important, I need more than a day's notice, though. I need a week or 2's notice to plug those things in, but would certainly be willing to do that on an as-needed basis.
Okay, thank you.
But so if you would like for me to serve in the community partnership panel on a quarterly basis, I would love to know who to contact to make sure that I'm apprised of.
We can do, try to think of the next CPP meeting. The next one is February 22nd, and they're usually from 3 to 5.
And they're online or they're in
They're
person?
always in Zoom. They're talking about going back to in person, but I think they'll always have Zoom as an option.
As an
We
option. Okay.
do. Dana, any thoughts?
Only that I'm really busy.
Yeah, I get it. Okay.
I'm at work right now.
Okay, that we put a list together. Send it out. I mean, at least lets people know what the options are. That's all. And we're all busy and everybody has jobs and lives, and so the expectation is pretty low in terms of of asking city council members with jobs to dive in to a lot of this.
Could we get when? And the frequency?
Yeah,
as
you want.
well?
The answer is, yeah, we could probably put that together. That's a little trickier. Some of them aren't, you know, on a regular scheduled basis. So we'll see what we can
For
do.
those who can, I mean.
Sure.
I mean, I would love to say, oh, yeah, I'll get on,
Yeah.
you know, I'll do the phrase. No, I'm just kidding.
Excellent.
But you know what I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really want to sign up for something. and be like, oh,
Okay.
it's not-
We'll put a list together, send it out. If we need a work session, we can do that. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Great, thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you for putting a little more process to this.
Okay. At this time, we have the consent agenda, which is the approval of the December 20th, 2022 minutes. Any changes to those minutes? I already talked to Hannah about one. Minor,
Yeah.
or
The only thing I'd say is it's not the Economic Development Commission, it's the Economic Development Corporation.
good catch. Okay, I would entertain a motion, please.
My letter moves to approve the consent agenda with said modifications.
Grant seconds.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, all were in favor. Okay. We dive into the action. First is resolution number 1, is the resolution designating the official public notice location and the official newspaper of general circulation for the city of Leadville, Colorado. This is perfunctory, we have to do this every year, and we're doing it right now. Anybody have any questions about the resolution?
This is just as by way of background, we're required to do this every year at our first meeting. So this is, we give you a softball as first resolution, but this just designates our public posting locations for all of our meetings. And these are just the locations we've traditionally used: the front door of City Hall, city's website, and the Leadville Herald.
I would entertain a motion, please.
Grant will do. Grant moves to adopt resolution 1, series of 2023, a resolution designating the official public notice location in the official newspaper of general circulation for the city of Leadville, Colorado.
Grant seconds.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Fergetti,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill is absent. Mayor Lobby,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes,
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna Leon,
Yes.
Councilmember Larson,
Yep.
Thank you. Next up, we have resolution number 2, it's a resolution for supplemental budget. Again, we have to do this every year for the Department of Local Affairs. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go through quickly the public hearing process. Good evening, my name is Greg Lobby, I am the mayor of the city of Leadville. This is a public hearing for city council to consider the adoption of the city's 2022 supplemental budget. The proposed supplemental budget for 2022 has been on file with the finance director at City Hall and has been available for public inspection. Newspaper publication of public hearing notice was published in the Herald Democrat on December 22nd, 2022. I will now open the public hearing on the city of Leadville's 2022 supplemental budget at 7 p.m. At this time, I would ask staff for input on the supplemental budget.
Can you hear me from over here?
The only thing I wanted to mention was basically the city hall operations, the not was because of the Spruce Street house and the property behind Western Hardware. So, you know, you look at that number and you think, oh. The other big number is of course in the street department, but that is because of the fact that we had money in a reserve fund, but it still was not expended until 2022. So we pulled it from there, but expended it in 2022. So that entire amount of the paving is in this year's expenditures. Other than that, fire department looks pretty good except for the wildfire deployments. So they had enough revenue that came in that covered their expenses, so they're actually in pretty good shape. Other than that, I don't really have any other comments unless there's questions.
I do have just a question. So this is above and beyond what we were anticipating to spend.
Yes.
Right? So can you go and tell me once again and tell us again what the city hall operating expenditures were above and beyond?
The 809 Spruce Street house, which is not budgeted for, so we had to do that, and then there was $100-something-thousand for the property that we bought, that parking lot behind Mr. Hardware. So the two of those together constitute most of it.
Any other questions for Don? Okay, thank you. At this time, I would ask if anybody in the public would like to comment or propose something in the budget for 2022. If you would like to, please come up and introduce yourself, and we'll have 3 minutes to speak to city council. Hearing none, we'll close this public portion of the public hearing, but I will need a motion to do so.
Or it's a move to close the public comment portion of the public hearing.
In the last seconds.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Abstentions. At this time, the public comment portion is closed. We are in deliberation. Any comments or discussion from city council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion, please.
Unfortunately, there wasn't.
There's no motion, you gotta add liquor.
Just go to the top.
Yeah, Councilmember Pugency moves to approve resolution 2 series of 2023, a resolution for supplemental budget for unanticipated revenues and appropriating additional sums of money to defray unanticipated expenditures in excess of amounts budgeted for the general fund and the fire operations fund of the city of Leadville, Colorado.
Grant seconds.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Grayson,
Yeah.
Councilmember Middleton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes,
Mayor Levy,
Yeah.
Councilmember Phillips is absent, Councilmember Pergency.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, it is 7:05, and I close the public hearing on supplemental budget for 2022. Next up, we have ordinance number 1 series of 2023. This is an ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on the acceptance, processing, and approval of any new business licenses for the sale, rental, or leasing of off-highway vehicles in the city of Leadville. This is first reading. Using a first reading is not a public hearing, but if anyone would like to comment on this resolution, we would be happy to hear from the public. Has everybody had a chance to look this over?
And while everybody is thinking, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on this. This was on one of the list of goals for 2023 was to address this issue, and the issue of off-highway vehicle use and the impacts on the city are a bit different than the county in that for us, if you all attended the open house that the county had a while back, you know, our issues are noise, safety, and speeding are really the issues within our city limits. And some cities in the United States are feeling that impact quite a bit, and we are being proactive on this rather than being reactive. I just want to make it very clear that this does not affect the existing businesses that have a business license. There are 2 of them within the city limits. This is a temporary moratorium that would last for 10 months from the point it takes effect. And it would just give us time to figure out if we want to address any of the impacts on our community, on the city in particular. And if there are impacts other than noise, safety, and traffic, but it gives us an opportunity to do that. And I don't know if you wanted Christiana to address anything else.
I do, Christiana and I talked today, on the last, whereas on the first page. Talks about, doing this inconsistent with Lake County, but as Lloyd pointed out, our issues are very different. So Christiana has suggested some different wording, regarding that. Christiana, do you have that wording handy?
I do, and so this is the, let's see. Sorry, bringing it up on my screen. This is the whereas that says that currently says the city council desires to develop fair, clear OHV licensing regulations consistent with Lake County, et cetera, et cetera. And what we talked about today was instead of having the language shown in the ordinance in your packet, we could replace that whereas with a recital stating, whereas the city council desires to develop fair, clear OHV licensing regulations in accordance with the goals and strategies set forth in the city's comprehensive plan at or around the same time as Lake County is developing its OHV regulations. Instead of saying consistent with Lake County.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing that we talked about is, by definitions in statute, snowmobiles are not regarded as OHVs. And, but 2 of the businesses that we're talking about, although they're grandfathered in, are in wintertime snowmobile operations. And to me, at least my thought was maybe they should also require some separate regulation. But what Christiana pointed out is in state statute, there are already pretty stringent regulations around snowmobile use. And so that may not be an issue for us, which I accept. So I just want to let you know, we did have that conversation around the subject of snowmobiles as not defined as OHVs.
Commissioner Bergman said that the next work session on OHVs will be on the 10th at 2.
Oh, January 10th at 2?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody in the public that has thoughts on this and would like to speak to city council? This moratorium is going to be a 10-month moratorium from the date, its effective date. And so it gives us time to listen to what county has is considering, and then what avenue we will choose to go down in terms of regulation. Any other thoughts or considerations? This is first reading, so we pass this, then we'll go to second reading in 30 days.
Mayor,
Yes, please.
is there anything that we have to cross-reference in the table of uses to understand what we're putting a moratorium on.
Not the table of uses, this has more to do with our code. But yes, the table of uses will be put in place regardless of this, because, and this was the part when, remember when I was discussing with TJ about, I want these to be CUPs, and he said, no, the table of uses, they're going to be used by right, but all the regulations that they have to follow to get that use approved, permitted, will be in the regulations themselves.
And maybe to put the different framework on this is, these are two different ways that the city has is structured. So the table of uses is land use, and that's how we govern use of land. This is a business license, which is a separate, business licensing is a separate section of our code. And so really it's, sometimes you need a CUP and a business license to run your business. What I did check with our deputy city clerk previously when this issue came up was there are 2 conditional use permits we have issued to the to businesses in town that have business licenses for off-road or off-highway vehicles, and those are conditional use permits to allow unscreened outdoor storage. So if you think of it as business license and land use, it's kind of 2 separate things. So you may have a business license, but you don't get your conditional use permit, then you still can't do what you'd like to do. But in this case, it's kind of 2 separate buckets.
If you'll remember, I was kind of struggling with the idea of not having these uses as conditional use permits. And TJ seemed, looked at things that, and I think he was not wrong, that they would certainly have a list of regulations in place that they have to adhere to in order to get that license. So, makes me a little nervous, but that's a different discussion. Yes, Tracy, sorry.
Why are we including the sale of OHVs in the moratorium? What's wrong with selling?
I don't know. That's a good question. That hadn't occurred to me. Christiana, any thoughts on that?
Usually when we're talking about business licenses, the sale and rental of items is usually included in, just the overall category of businesses for business licenses when you talk about that. So there wasn't any specific reason other than if we're talking about the use of OHVs and issuing business licenses for OHVs and wanting to just preserve the status quo and not have any additional OHVs crowding around Leadville or, surrounding areas, then that's why it's both sale and rental.
I'm not sure I agree with that. Okay.
I
I
don't.
mean, you're gonna go outside the county and buy an OHV if you want to. Why should we give up our sale tax if somebody wants to buy an OHV in the county?
I tend to agree with that. I'm more concerned about rentals and guiding, as the youth is that are, I don't even know if they're renting, but they might be. But that's what I'm worried about. Sales doesn't really concern me. On the other hand, this is just a moratorium to get us to a place that we feel more certain about, what we're doing in terms of new ordinance around OHVs. I don't know, it is first reading. I don't have a problem striking sales. I don't, what does everybody else think?
What about guiding? Because if sale, rental, or leasing doesn't include that, it's a guiding operation.
We're not licensing the guiding of. Correct.
We could,
But they're not, but
there's no reason we couldn't.
they could have a fleet of 50 snowmobiles and then not sale, rent, or lease, and they can just guide.
Well, to your point, there was a company. The sports shop used to lease guided snowmobile tours. They were in the city, but they took their vehicles out and went around Turquoise Lake. So, yeah, that,
Well, I mean, that's a good point, but to your point, the two organizations in town that exist now, I think the point I'm trying to get at here is, I don't want more. And I want the ones we have to have some strict guidelines for doing business. That's it. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I agree that sales probably should not be a factor here. And the guiding should be a factor in terms of how this is written on second reading.
what if you're guiding people who bring their own OHVs to our county and then they guide them around the trail?
I still think that's an issue for permitting. Because
But do we
not- not here.
partly as a business?
You raise a very good question that we had a debate about. There is a new law in Colorado that talks about businesses that don't have their permanent structure located within the city limits. So the answer to your question is, we could license that business if they were doing business in Leadville more than infrequently. We could require them to have a business license. But let's say you advertise yourself as a guide in Colorado, okay? And you say, you all with your snowmobiles, pick your town and I'll take you there. And you go to Leadville, you take a group maybe once a year. That may not be frequent enough for us to require that individual to have a business license within city limits. So it's laws rolling out like as of July of 22 and July of 2023. So there's going to be a lot of interpretation about that. But if someone has a brick and mortar building here and they're doing guiding, then we would require them to have a business license. So, and just so you know, these were questions that came up of like, I have a copy of the business and tax license application in front of me, and we require the business owner to describe the product or service sold. So we would hope that if they were doing multiple things, they would put in their license, we rent and guide. So we would know what the parameters of the business are.
So to Max's point, is the word guiding enough in this resolution?
I would say it is. So I worked on some similar legislation in Moab and we included the word guiding, I believe. So
Then I'm going to suggest on second reading, we strike the word sale and that we add the word guiding into the resolution. Is that okay? Everybody? All right.
I believe Christiana has a point to make.
Christiana, yes, please.
I just wanted to ask a question of city council. So are there any guiding businesses that would be able to operate their guides within city limits?
Yes, there are two existing now.
But do they take OHV tours within the city?
They exist in the city, they start with the city.
Yeah. I guess I'm just wondering, what is the true purpose of the moratorium? Is it to make sure that OHVs are not operated within the city during the moratorium, or is it just to?
No.
Okay,
This is only about new businesses starting during this moratorium. To give us, time to put together code that works for the city of Leadville, but doesn't allow in the interim an explosion of OHV businesses that would be used by right under our current code.
mhm. Okay, so the term guiding is probably sufficient. If I think about that a little bit more in between now and second reading, I'll let you guys know if I have a different suggestion for that.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other thoughts? In which case I would entertain a motion, please.
Does the motion require the amendments?
You might say with possible suggested amendments to be determined, something like that. So Christiana has time to digest what we talked about.
Loretto moved to adopt ordinance 1, series of 2023, an ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on the acceptance, processing, and approval of any new business licenses for the rental, guiding, or leasing of off-highway vehicles in the city of Leadville on first reading. I further move to schedule second reading for city council's regular meeting on February 7, 2023.
For Jency seconds.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Virginia,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas absent, Mayor Lobby,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Councilmember Leo,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivera,
Yes.
Would really like to abstain. Councilmember Gray would like to change her vote to an abstention.
An extension is a no.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
I think
Okay.
Christiana wanted to say something.
Christiana, yes, please.
Usually council members shouldn't abstain unless there's a like direct conflict. So it should really just be a yes or a no vote.
Okay.
Can you explain that, please?
Abstentions are kind of like recusals, and you don't recuse yourself unless there's like a financial conflict or something of that nature for the with the ordinance. And this kind of stems from council members' duties to act on the items before them. And so the normal recommended practice is that abstentions shouldn't happen unless you're recusing yourself due to a conflict. And instead, it should just be a yes or a no vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Grant changes vote to no.
Thank you. Okay. Great, thank you all very much. I'll be looking forward to second reading. This time we have a public meetings planner.
We do have the Laura meeting on the 5th at 6 o'clock. The agenda has come out because Amy has been out.
Oh, she has, okay.
So I've been trying to connect today. We'll get it out tomorrow morning. Give you a copy so you can. post
If I can help with that, let me know. Good.
I will not be able to.
Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Have you been in contact with the hospital, a record some
I have not, the only thing I thought was they had those two openings on the board, I thought, you know. Of course, I was thinking, should I raise my hand, and I thought, no, I shouldn't, but, that's actually,
Several weeks ago, I did reach out to the interim CEO and just said, is there anything you need from the city? And he said, we're working hard. We have a lot to get through. And, you know, obviously, he said financially, if you had a ton of money, we would all appreciate that. But I said, you know, if there's something we can share as far as resources, or if there's something that we can support you with, we're happy to do that. So we have that channel of communication open. They know that we're ready, willing, and able to help if we can.
Tracy, is that something you were thinking of raising your hand for? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, sorry.
No, I have a new job starting next week, and I'm not sure how much time it's gonna take. Like a little pads for you.
If anybody interested in putting in a letter of interest for the hospital board.
No.
I actually sent an email, and depending on when it is.
Okay, thank you. I don't even know when they meet. When does the hospital board meet?
I think it's the second Thursday afternoon.
At noon? See, that causes a problem for anybody who's over the daytime job.
Once, second, third.
Yes, but given the circumstances, they're fine.
And it's only until May. Correct? Is that what I read here for? I know they want to be on.
The vacancies will be until May. And in February, people need to submit letters of interest for their intention to run in the May election. That's maybe the end of May.
Second Thursday.
And the only other thing for the public meetings planner that our deputy city clerk pointed out is we did discuss having a work session, the city council work session on January 24th, and we will add that to the calendar as well. And I think that is our,
Regarding the historic preservation code amendments.
Will that be during your regular meeting?
No, that'd be 6 o'clock, right? 6. We
6
just,
o'clock.
we decided that was 6 o'clock, not
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
Got it.
Mayor, back to the hospital board, I only am interested because I want to understand what's going on. Who would I submit my letter of interest with from her?
Francine Weber.
Oh, that's right, she's the chair. Good.
If there's any way you can get me here.
I will get,
I can get it to you.
okay, I'll look change it. I didn't realize there were 3 vacancies on the board. I knew Kate stepped off and Charlene.
I thought it was 2 board spots.
However many it is, that they'd be happy to use just for that tree.
I'm trying to see if I'm really interested in it, and then on that. Just to see.
Well, all I have to say is whoever's on that board is gonna have to be on their toes right now. I mean, it's serious.
Well, Commissioner Bergen, there as well.
Okay.
It's www.sbghd.org/district/. Well, I'm not wearing my close-up reading glasses. That's why I can read the far away stuff.
SBGHD.
.org/district/.
And I'm sorry, they had changed the regular meetings to the 4th Wednesday.
The 4th Wednesday.
4th Wednesday.
how many times does the fourth Wednesday happen? Okay,
Everybody.
I'm sorry, you just said, yeah.
Or Wednesday. Wednesday.
okay.
I'd like to say additionally, the meetings planner that, you know, we had an inquiry from, was it Amy? Who wanted to know how she could, you know, make sure that meetings got on here, and we gave her Hannah's information, but Hannah's trying to, there's a glitch in the program now, so she's working on getting this up on the website.
Thursday of every month at 6 o'clock.
Letters of interested, Peyton. I can't read that, is that LEF?
The fever, LEFDR.
I can almost read it.
Okay. Anything else on the plan, other than Marty calls on the 14th? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. The mayor's report, this just came in today. I'm not asking for a decision today, but I wanted everybody to see. We have consistently supported Scott Carroll and the school. They're doing sound music this year, and so maybe at the next city council meeting, I'll bring up whether we want to sponsor this out of the contingency fund, and if so, at what amount. Any council reports?
Was that in Mayor report?
That was it, yeah,
I do have a question for you.
sure.
Uh, Talk a little bit about what's going on with the homeless coalition.
I would love to, but I missed the meeting today. In fact, I didn't get an invitation. I called Christie and she apologized. Something went wrong with her email, so I didn't get an invitation. But so I can't. Were you at that meeting today?
Not at today's meeting, but do you just want a general update?
Well, yes, I've heard that perhaps there's some talk about donating land.
They have approached the city about possible land that they could put a homeless shelter on. Chapin and I have discussed that with them about. We only have a couple of possibilities. We have made no commitments, just a conversation we're having with them.
Okay, I guess my thought, just listening, hearing that is back to my soapbox on the strategic plan for the city and what we need for our own functional government, not to say that there isn't a need for homeless shelters here in the city of Leadville and Lake County. As I said, we also have only a certain amount of assets that we can do something upon here. And if there is a way to think about what we need with the master development plan for our needs in 20 years, as well as if there is that opportunity for.
Well, we'll see if they bring us a proposal. If they do, then we can discuss it. And that's about as far as we can go with that.
And for context, this is something that the advocates have been working towards for quite a while now, the better half of 2022. It's thought out through them. They're kind of the people leading this, and I do think, to your point, it's important to get that for us internally. However, I think that's a major consideration because I would hate for the city to be completely unprepared for an inevitable mass eviction, as we've seen with not massive. Wouldn't be the first time that happens in our community, and we would need somewhere for those people to go in the interim.
Is there any opportunities for us to partner with, let's say, the Silver King?
I have no clue.
Well, I'm just saying, is there other opportunities than, building a homeless shelter on city property? I mean, I'm asking, when we're thinking about these things, that is one potential tool in a myriad of tools that are available throughout our community and beyond the city borders to think about to combat our homelessness.
Again, we'll let them come speak to us. The myriad of possibilities as you propose that they may exist, I'm not sure exist.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different topic, and we can go down that rabbit hole for a long time. But I don't even know if they're going to propose anything to us. We're not sure about that. So
I guess it's really just exploring the options of what is available to them instead of anything concrete right now, given the stage that they're at. They're still working through applications and such. So I wouldn't necessarily worry that this would be the first and only conversation. There's going to be plenty of room for conversation and growth. Especially given if we actually go through with making a master plan of what we need and our essentials for us. I think that'll clarify things for them a lot too, so.
I mean, just something that the city of Burlington is doing, which has a massive homeless population, not anything, I mean, it is multiple factors greater than what we have here, and they created these pods, little pods, 8x10 pods, that have pretty much bed, heat, you name it. And then outside that pod, they have community, kitchens. So like you have a sleeping area, that's your space only. And they then have like a community shower house, community kitchen that can be doing that. I mean, is the senior center being utilized as much as capacity? Could the convention center be utilized in a different way than it is? I'm just saying, beyond this, we need to think outside of like as somebody representing maybe not the city in this, but like your own interest or other places that you serve, like what else is there out there?
So I guess
for homeless?
what we can do is, Christy Galarza has invited, I was able to attend the last one, the homelessness prevention, strategic planning. And I think they are in a strategic planning process that's doing all of this. And there are multiple meetings. They're about, I don't know, Councilmember Luna, now maybe a third of the way or over half of the way through the process. And so probably what we should do is have them just come present when they've gotten their strategic plan, because there's been as far as I could tell, the meeting that I went to, they had a lot of the nonprofits in the community that are providing various services to the homeless population and putting together a strategic plan about how to address all the issues. So I think the strategic plan is exactly what you're asking for, and it's what they're in the process of doing right now.
And it's why they're approaching with these conversations to just kind of figure out what's going on and where can we get some pulls, because a lot of these conversations are conversations that we've had is sat down, strategize. Who makes best sense to tackle what resources can we access, what resources do we already have that we don't even need to access, we just need to communicate. As far as the coalition goes, both the housing and the homelessness coalition or subcommittee are two of the most organized in our community with list of resources as to where to go even outside of our own community and what resources are available. So of any that I have trust in, it is those two to come the most prepared to us with explored options and really thought out processes of why they're asking for it. And I mean, obviously I have a bias in it because I'm in it, but
I would also say the advocates have really done a good job of getting their ducks in a row in terms of the organization. And they put together that within the advocates, and they have Claire kind of, taking the leadership role there. She's very, very smart. So I expect to see, a really thoughtful presentation of what the possibilities are. So we'll see what they are. I don't know what they are.
yeah, I would have trust in that process because it is exactly what we're aiming to do in our process.
Christian, I know this isn't the manager's report, but like, because how large is our, like, what does constitute homeless in our community, and what types of numbers are there?
We have there's a great, Christy Phillip provided, I think she came to the council meeting, presented a document. There is a survey that came out this summer, and I can forward it to the council that gives a lot of the data.
A lot of it goes, and this is something that all of us have admitted to, and it's not a new problem for anyone. A lot of it goes unnoticed. Our community specifically has a double up issue, where a lot of people are doubling up in homes that should not be doubled up in, which can lead to various amount of problems, including violent problems. So it's a little bit different than traditional homelessness that we see around like Denver, for example, and a lot more of multi-generational homes of people living there that probably should not be living in such a small home. Lots of doubling up, lots of couch surfing that's really common in our community. But those numbers that we do have are available, but they are very conservative numbers.
It's car camping, it's tent camping in the woods. It's also, as you have pointed out before, it's families that have become homeless. It is such a wide range. I mean, I admit that I always thought it was old white guys in a tent in the woods, and it's not. It's multifaceted.
I remember her report too, and it had something, the number was like 60, that we were 60 individuals consistently in our community.
It's a big number.
It was a big number, and I think that's why it stuck in my head.
The report is available to us, and I can get those numbers by next council meeting.
The abstract came out, the assessment came out in July 2022, and I'll just circulate it tonight for everybody. And it looks like it's pretty thorough.
Like I said, in my personal experience, it has been more abundant than what the reports lead to, and that's just off of when I worked at Full Circle and the resource connections that I would make. It would be plainly obvious that these people should be considered homeless given our our criteria for homelessness. And most of the time they go unreported as homeless because of their conditions and belief that they are not homeless because there's a shelter above their house. So it is not permanent nor safe nor healthy.
Okay. Are there any council report? No, heck of a mayor's report. Not at all. I mean, it's a great topic. We're gonna hear a lot more about it this year. Any other council reports? Danny, anything, or do you need to get back to work?
The regional housing authority.
I got nothing. Thank you.
All right, Jay, thank you. Sorry.
Regional housing authority moving along, we got past the tier system. Probably the most controversial and still controversial point of it, but we're past that hurdle. And I think it's smooth sailing from here on out. We're still looking to be able to apply, or actually we got the formal ask that we can apply. So we are going to be applying, but we're going to be looking towards the school district to have an agreement that we will be using their land. So that's our next steps, and well, we have till the end of the month to apply. So see how it goes. We're hopeful, very, very high hopes. They've been using us as an example as to what should be done. So
That is hopeful. Are we only, at this point, are we down to the two county pieces on Fourth and Eighth?
I think we're down to the school district.
Oh, really? Because the school district didn't seem that open to it when I was at the last meeting.
Yeah, we've had good conversations with them, a lot more open-ended. I don't want to comment on what choices they may make, I'm not sure,
Okay.
but we're hopeful.
I'm very pleased to hear that, actually, because that's a great location.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
they seemed much more open after having those conversations with them.
Excellent. All right. Anybody else? I know it's not 10 o'clock yet. It is only, what is it, 7:43, and the city council is adjourned.